Currently, this is a common scene in funeral parlors in China. A long line of people are waiting for their turn to cremate their loved ones. In a 40-second video, we saw more than 40 coffins. On January 8, 2023, the Center for Disease Control and Prevention of China claimed that only 37 people had passed away due to the epidemic since December 7, 2022. Evidently, no one in China or abroad believes this number. Foreign media outlets have published reports questioning the Communist Party's outbreak statistics. Under international pressure, on January 14th, China's National Health Commission stated at a press conference that there were nearly 60,000 deaths from the outbreak in medical institutions nationwide between December 8, 2022 and January 12, 2023. Although the new figure is more than 1,000 times higher than the original one, it's still met with widespread skepticism. Netizens questioned, 60,000 divided by 200 cities, that's an average of 200 deaths per city. Is that one day? Right now, one can't even get a number in a funeral home. The number isn't even possible to cheat a fool.
哎呀，盼星星盼月亮似的，把这个官方统计数字终于盼出来了。
Finally, the official statistics are released, but I wonder how fishy they are. I always advocate truthfulness when releasing figures so that the common folks can trust them. But for the figures you released, look at the comments section below. How do you get the statistics of elderly people who weren't hospitalized in rural areas and passed away due to the epidemic? When an elderly person dies in a city or town, his or her family goes to the neighborhood committee to get the death certificate. Why won't you allow people to fill in that they passed away from the coronavirus? It's obvious they died because of the new coronavirus. Why do you insist on death cause being basic illnesses and deleting the new coronavirus? So reconsider your figures and see if you republish them. Here is one figure for reference. The New York-based media outlet The Epoch Times Chinese website published an article on January 16th reporting that Master Li, the founder of Falun Gong, said that the Chinese Communist Party had been covering up the epidemic for more than 3 years, that 400 million people had died in China, and that 500 million people would die by the time the epidemic ends. The article also states that Master Li warned many years ago of a plague in China and gave instructions on how to find salvation. In his poem, he urged, "Stay away from the evil Chinese Communist Party and find the truth quickly." A great deal of first-hand information has been circulating among the Chinese people about the massive deaths due to the outbreak. Previously, officials in the central province of Henan revealed that 89 million of the province's 100 million population were infected with the virus. At the same time, information from different sources indicates that many senior Communist Party officials, members, and followers have died. This is a hospital in Shanghai that is still overflowing with patients. This is a hospital in Jiangsu province. Many Chinese people have placed their last hope of keeping their loved ones alive in hospitals. They have taken on heavy financial burdens as a result.
If my dad hadn't gotten sick this time, I wouldn't have known what the ICU is. If I hadn't come to ICU, I really wouldn't have known how terrible the cost of a room was. The average day here is over $2,200 US. If you go to ICU, it costs $9,650 to turn on the machine, nearly $3,000 for daily maintenance, and over $6,000 per day for other medications and medical care. If it's expensive and you can't afford it, you can make a down payment and take out a loan. You can pay back the rest slowly. But here in the ICU, you need to pay cash. If you don't have enough money, the patient will have to be moved out. So the ICU wards are lined with families of patients who bring their own mats and bedding. Some even rent a hallway for a month to sleep there. They do everything they can to keep their loved ones alive.
In many cases, Chinese families have paid expensive fees, but their loved ones died anyway before they could even say goodbye.
这几天在医院陪伴家人。
I feel a lot of emotions when I'm with my family in the hospital these days. Besides feeling sad and helpless, the most I see is a forever goodbye. Some family members can't even see their loved ones for the last time. They can't say goodbye and say their last words. Yes, it's that fast. Before entering the hospital, no one would have imagined that it would be goodbye forever. The door of the hospital separates the human world from the other world. Out of respect for the deceased and their families, I haven't taken any pictures, but as far as I can see, at least 5 people die every day. These deceased people even have to wait in line for the shuttles to the other world, because there are too many people to handle. When faced with life and death, I feel that people are so insignificant. When I hear white lungs again, I am really scared. I don't know what can be done to shield people away from the new coronavirus. If there is only a 10% chance of not being infected, I would like to save that 10% for the elderly and children. We have seen shocking scenes in various funeral parlors in China from early December last year until now. The person who shot the video said this was a scene in a funeral home late at night, with coffins on the shelves and the floor. The family members of the deceased were lining up for the paperwork.
哎呀，我太残忍了！这都排着往外地分流呢，现在全是啊。
Look, Tianhe Yuan Crematorium. How many people have passed away? Now more than 20 large sheds are being built. They are used to store bodies. There is no room for more bodies. More than 20 sheds are being built here to store bodies. Today, more than 100 carpenters came because there is no place to put the deceased. The last place I want to film, alas. Let's take a look. How important life is. Look, what is the situation now? There is not enough place to store the body. Look at these temporary structures. I really don't want to film this. So scary. Cherish the physical body. There is not enough space. Look, they are stored outside. The indoor area is crowded with people, becoming a place for dining and reception. In a previous episode, we displayed a satellite image taken by an American company, Maxar Technologies. It showed unusually busy activity at funeral homes in southeast and northwest China. Similar information has been reported by several Western media outlets. For example, on January 12th, The Economist reported that a funeral worker in a county-level city in Henan province said the crematorium, which handled only 30 to 40 cremations a day before the COVID pandemic, is now 3 times busier than usual and blames it on the new coronavirus. Bao Jian, daughter of the secretary of former Communist Party General Secretary Zhao Ziyang, tweeted on January 13th, Beijing has had hundreds of thousands of deaths in a month, and the municipal city government is still banging drums and holding recognition ceremonies. What a shame. In less than a month, I've lost 17 of my friends or their loved ones. This is unheard of in my lifetime. So, is it a once-in-a-millennium event? How can you, the Beijing government, explain to the public the devilish speed of 90% of the people infected with the virus in 1 month? From 90% asymptomatic at the beginning to the present 90% symptomatic and 10% seriously ill? A netizen replied to her saying, "I'm right here in Beijing. The figure you mention, hundreds of thousands, may be a bit conservative. I guess it has to be millions." Besides the big cities, the countryside isn't looking good either. Bloomberg said that a village in Luyi County of Henan Province has patients in almost every household. A sense of helplessness pervades the village. Many families have let their family members spend the last stage of life at home. It's unlikely that their names will appear on any official COVID statistics. Reuters also reported a story that on the afternoon of January 9th, about 50 family members and neighbors attended the funeral of a grandmother surnamed Liu who passed away in a village in Zhejiang province. Due to long lines at the local crematorium, the family members had to hold the memorial in the afternoon, instead of in the morning, which is the traditional custom. The Wall Street Journal reported on January 12th that a Shanghai courier said that every day he has seen white wreaths hanging on the doors of the apartments he delivers to, a sign that someone has passed away in the family. Many signs and sources of information suggest that the current epidemic tsunami in China is massive, and the real numbers are so big that the CCP would not dare to disclose them. In this funeral home, a sign on the wall reads, "Watch the body of your own family and take responsibility for moving the wrong body." At this time, you can't blame the funeral parlors because currently they are probably the busiest industry in China. The related industries are also extremely busy. Here, factories are rushing to make coffins overnight, and trucks of all sizes are delivering them. In this video, the person filming says that she is in the business of making bags, that is, bags for human bodies. The various Chinese governments or civil affairs bureaus make orders every day. Orders range from 100,000 to tens of millions, including an order for 30 million, but they usually require a fast turnaround, such as half a month for delivery. Master Li, who we mentioned earlier, also pointed out that when SARS broke out between 2002 and 2004, 200 million people died in China. Years later, the CCP found that the population had decreased and immediately let loose the 2-child and 3-child policies. So, are these figures too staggering? According to the information released by China's National Bureau of Statistics, the November 2020 census results in a national population of over 1.4 billion people. However, this census has been met with considerable skepticism. For example, in December 2021, an internationally renowned demographer estimated that China's population in 2020 was 1.28 billion, not 1.41 billion as announced by the official census. In 2021, we did a series of episodes on the reliability of China's population data, cross-examining data from various Chinese government departments at different times. We concluded that the CCP's data was highly inflated. In a previous episode in July 2022, data and police records on 1 billion Chinese citizens in Shanghai Public Security Bureau system were hijacked and sold online. Judging from the 750,000 sample records of Chinese citizens provided for free reading, some of the information has been corroborated to prove authentic. Silence from the Chinese government also backs up the low likelihood of the data being concocted. Then, is it possible that the actual population of mainland China is most likely only 1 billion people or less? Otherwise, why would a public security database that collects data leave out other people? Even if there were high-ranking Communist Party officials who aren't included in the database due to confidentiality, the number shouldn't be too large. We looked up that in October 2015, the CCP implemented the two-child policy, and in 2021, the three-child policy. In other words, before 2015, the Communist Party had already discovered that the country's total population had dropped significantly, so the population figures before and after 2015 were probably carefully retouched and reworked. Let's look at the results of the population census conducted by the Chinese government every 10 years. In 2010, the population was over 1.3 billion. In 2000, it was 1.295 billion, and in 1990, it was 1.16 billion. The years 1990 to 2000 were a period of rapid economic growth in China, where household income was growing, and there was no massive plague. That's to say, there was no logical reason to falsify the population result, which was 1.295 billion at the time. Based on the population of over 1 billion in 2022, how did China lose nearly 300 million people in the 22 years from 2000 to 2022? According to demographer Professor Yi, China's population in 2020 was estimated to be 1.28 billion, and he believes that 2018 is the beginning of negative growth. That is to say, after excluding massive accidents, the total population of China has increased by 85 million in 22 years. The disappearance of 300 million people should obviously be related to various natural and man-made disasters and plagues, in addition to family planning, environmental pollution, food pollution, and human factors. The SARS outbreak in 2002 and the pandemic in Wuhan in 2020 are likely significant factors involved. In early 2020, the pandemic broke out in Wuhan, which hasn't died out yet. Numerous data and reports from that time indicate that during the 2 months before the Qingming Festival, where the Chinese pay tributes to the deceased in Wuhan, that is, around February 2020, people were lining up to collect urns of family members. 500 were given out each day. Still, not everyone could get theirs by the Qingming Festival in April. A simple calculation would suggest that over 100,000 people were cremated, but this was only for the 8 funeral homes in Wuhan, excluding the surrounding areas. But the epidemic was by no means limited to Wuhan. It had quickly spread to the whole country and the world by then. Based on the spreading speed of the epidemic tsunami that we see now, we can assume that the severity of the pandemic in other cities in China at that time should have been similar to that of Wuhan. The situation wouldn't have been any better than in Wuhan. It's just that the CCP also controlled all the information during the emergency lockdown, and it's hard for external parties to know exactly how many people passed away. Given the dozens of provinces and hundreds of cities in China, plus the countryside, there must have been massive deaths over the 3 years, leading to a substantial loss in the national population. It can be presumed that in the face of the tsunami of epidemics that hit at the end of 2022, the CCP's response was to lie completely flat, doing nothing, and let the people fend for themselves for 2 or 3 months. They have used fake data to fool the public. Because of the information control and fragmentation, even the families of the deceased thought it was normal for old people to die of the virus, be cremated, delete their household registration, and go on with their lives. In the meantime, the Chinese government is creating false prosperity and liveliness that the public doesn't even realize that a great disaster is around the corner. The biggest event on Earth, the Spring Festival transportation, is underway. The Chinese people are seeing crowds of people on the streets, in markets, and at tourist attractions. People are everywhere, and they feel as if their lives are back to normal. I am not worried about the virus because our immunity is okay since we are young. The first time I tested positive was because I was a volunteer and there were too many infected people there. The second time, there was no way I could have avoided it. I haven't tested positive since the reopening. Now, a lot of people are testing positive, and still some are not testing positive. I am not worried about the virus. Back in my hometown, there are many people who have tested positive, but I am not worried about it. I feel that when winter comes, and especially when the season changes, the drums and gongs in the villages are often beaten to signify the death of old people. There are many old people that died, but I don't think this is only due to COVID. COVID is likely to have added to this, but I don't think it's as serious as everyone says. This is my feeling. It's quite good. There is nothing to worry about anymore. The country has reopened this year. The pandemic is over. There are many people who got COVID, but I have not been infected. It's quite good. I feel quite lucky. But there are always certain signs that reveal the deep anxiety of the CCP about the population. As 2023 rolls on, governments across China are introducing subsidized fertility policies. At a time when the outbreak is so severe, the government isn't thinking about how to deal with the epidemic, but how to boost the birth of newborns. On January 10, 2023, the Health Commission of Shenzhen, Guangdong Province announced its intention to grant subsidies for childbirth, including a 3-year cumulative subsidy of about US $1,118, US $1,641, and US $2,834 for the birth of 1, 2, and 3 children respectively. It has sparked public attention. In addition to Shenzhen, several provinces such as Shanxi, and Yunnan have also introduced policies to encourage the birth of 2 and 3 children with subsidies. In addition, various localities have introduced measures related to housing and childcare as well. Moreover, on January 17th, China's National Bureau of Statistics suddenly announced that China has entered an era of negative population growth. In 2022, 9.56 million people were born and 10.41 million people died, namely a loss of 850,000 people compared to the end of 2021. The emergence of negative growth in 2022 is 9 years sooner than the official CCP projection and 10 years earlier than the UN forecast in 2019. The turning point in population growth is significant. It's a tipping point in the social economy of China and the global geopolitics and geo-economy. Why has the CCP become so honest all of a sudden? Is it possible that a smaller number is being used to cover up a larger fact that cannot be masked? In the tsunami of epidemics, the Communist Party knows better than anyone about the secret of the death toll of the epidemic and is therefore actively promoting childbirth. But can such a promotion keep up with the speed of lives lost due to the epidemic? This is Jinzhou City Hospital. I parked here for 2 hours. Within 2 hours, the funeral home vehicles came and took away 8 people. That's 2 hours for 8 people. In a minute, I'll park myself in a place where babies are born. I'll see how many can be born in 2 hours. The dying speed is too fast.